Maria was a young woman eager for adventure. His entire life was dedicated to exploring new places and discovering the wonders of the world. However, the fast pace of life in the big city had begun to wear her down. She felt the need to escape the hustle and bustle, to find a refuge where she could regain her inner peace. One afternoon, while browsing the Airbnb platform looking for a peaceful retreat, something peculiar caught his eye. In the middle of a list of mountain cottages and cabins, there was one ad that stood out: secluded chalet in the mountain range of Silent. The description was succinct, but his words were captivating. The cabin was situated deep in the mountain range of Silence, surrounded by a breathtaking mountainous landscape. It promised complete peace and isolation, something Maria desperately craved. Intrigued, Maria clicked on the ad and started reading more about the chalet. He looked perfect in every way. There were hiking trails nearby, a crystal-clear stream, and even a fireplace for those chilly nights. However, there was one detail that made her curious and, at the same time, uneasy. The ad did not contain photos of the interior of the house. Such a lack of images was unusual on Airbnb, where photos are a key part of listing presentation. Maria hesitated for a moment, but her curiosity and desire to find tranquility convinced her to book the cottage for a weekend. The lack of interior footage only attracted more adventurers like her, and she was willing to take the risk. The next morning, Maria packed her bags and left for the mountain range of Silence. The scenery along the trip was spectacular, with majestic mountains and lush forests. As she approached her destination, the beauty of the landscape made her forget the worries of city life. However, as she moved away from the more populated areas and followed the coordinates provided by the advertisement, Maria began to feel a sense of isolation that she had not expected. The road grew narrower and narrower, and civilization slowly disappeared in the rearview mirror. Finally, after hours of driving, Maria arrived at the entrance to the Mountain of Silence. A rusty sign indicated that she was on the right path to the cabin. The road became a narrow, winding gravel trail, heading up the mountain. As the cabin approached, Maria noticed the change in the landscape around her. The vegetation became denser, and tall pine trees cast dark shadows across the path. She felt increasingly distant from the outside world. Finally, Maria saw the chalet at the top of a hill. It was a quaint wooden building, with a porch that stretched around the house. The view from the top of the hill was stunning, with mountains stretching as far as the eye could see. Everything seemed perfect, but there was something peculiar in the air. As Maria approached the house, the feeling that something was not right grew. The cabin felt isolated in a way she had never experienced before. There was no sign of life in that remote area. It was as if the mountain range of Silence had come to life and lived up to its name. The stunning landscape was enveloped in an almost oppressive silence, which made Maria feel small and vulnerable. Maria parked her car and approached the chalet. The facade was charming, with windows decorated with white curtains and an inviting red door. However, upon entering, his impression of the house began to change. The cabin's interior was as peculiar as the lack of photos had suggested. Old and dusty furniture made up the space. A stone fireplace stood in the center of the living room, and strange tapestries adorned the walls. Although the cabin was clean and well-maintained, there was something sinister about the atmosphere. Maria tried to push away her feelings of restlessness as she explored the rooms. The kitchen was fully equipped, but antique kitchen utensils and silver cutlery were strangely on display. In the bedroom, the bed was large and covered in crisp white sheets. One window offered a stunning view of the mountain, but as night approached, Maria noticed that the shadows seemed to lengthen unusually long. Maria ate her first meal at the chalet, using the ingredients she had brought with her. The fireplace crackled and silence enveloped the cabin. She felt like she was being watched, even though she knew she was alone. It was as if the house itself was watching her with invisible eyes. As Maria settled in for the night, she began to feel that her search for tranquility had taken her to a place that defied reason. The oppressive silence of the mountain range of Silence and the strange atmosphere of the cabin made her question her decision. However, the isolation appealed to her, and Maria was determined to spend the weekend at the mysterious cottage. Little did she know that her decision would lead her to an experience that would challenge all of her senses and her understanding of reality. The next morning, Maria woke up with a feeling of restlessness. The sun's rays invaded the room, revealing the strange tapestries on the walls. She got up from the bed and went to the balcony, where the view of the mountain range of silence stretched out before her. The scenery was breathtaking, but something continued to bother her. The oppressive silence of that remote region was disturbing. There were no sounds of birds, or even the gentle murmur of the wind. The isolation that initially attracted her now made her restless. She felt like she was in a world apart, a place where time had slowed down and civilization was miles away. Maria decided to explore the area around the chalet to dispel the feeling of discomfort. She found a trail that followed the mountainside, providing a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape. As he walked forward, the silence persisted, only broken by the sound of his own footsteps. The trail led her into a dense forest, where tall pine trees cast deep shadows across the path. Maria could feel the eyes of the forest on her, as if she were being watched. She forced herself to believe that her imagination was running wild, but the feeling that something wasn't right was with her. The day passed slowly, and Maria returned to the chalet in the afternoon. She tried to relax by reading a book by the fireplace, but the restlessness wouldn't leave her. The silence of the mountain range of silence seemed to surround her like a dark cloak, and the cabin, with its peculiar atmosphere, offered no refuge from discomfort. At dusk, Maria began to prepare dinner. While chopping vegetables in the kitchen, she heard a subtle shuffling sound coming from the hallway. Her heart skipped a beat, and she stopped immediately. The sound seemed to have come from upstairs. She slowly left the kitchen and went upstairs to investigate. Each step echoed in the silence of the house. When he reached the top of the stairs, he looked down the dark hallway. Nothing seemed out of place. She decided that her mind was playing tricks on her, and that the constant silence was starting to play with her senses. Maria returned to the kitchen and finished preparing dinner. As night fell, she tried to focus on her book, but the feeling that she wasn't alone persisted. It was as if the cabin held secrets that were not willing to be revealed. As the darkness of the night deepened, the sounds of the night began to fill the cabin. There was still no sign of life outside the window, but the crickets began to sing in chorus, creating an eerie soundtrack to the night. Maria tried to sleep, but the sounds of the night kept her awake. The crickets seemed to be singing in unison, as if they were calling someone. The silence of the woods had turned into an unsettling choir of nocturnal sounds. Finally, she fell asleep, but her sleep was restless. She dreamed of shadows that moved silently in the shadows of the cottage, invisible eyes watching her. She woke up several times during the night, feeling like she wasn't alone. At dawn, Maria felt exhausted and disturbed. The night had been a challenge to her nerves, and the cottage, with its strange atmosphere, did not put her at ease. She decided to spend the day exploring the region, hoping to dispel the restlessness that surrounded her. With her backpack on her back, Maria set out for nearby hiking trails. She found one that took her to a stream of crystal clear water, where she decided to rest and enjoy the serenity of nature. However, even there, the feeling that she was being watched persisted. As the day progressed, Maria explored the region further. The landscape was breathtaking, with panoramic views of the mountains and valleys. However, the oppressive silence that enveloped the mountain range of silence continued to follow her, leaving her feeling like she was in a world apart. Upon returning to the cabin that night, Maria began to feel that the isolation was suffocating her. The silence of the remote region made her uneasy, and the strange atmosphere of the cabin did not put her at ease. Even the beauty of the mountainous landscape was unable to dispel the feeling of discomfort that surrounded her. She lay down on the bed, but the night that unfolded before her was long and disturbing. The sounds of the night continued to fill the cabin, but they were not the sounds of life. It was as if the mountain range of silence was trying to tell her something she couldn't understand. Maria questioned her decision to book the chalet. She was looking for tranquility, but what she found was an isolation that defied reason. The oppressive silence and strange atmosphere of the cabin made her question her search for peace. The mountain range of silence was living up to its name in a way she could never have imagined. As darkness enveloped the cabin in the mountain range of silence, Maria lit the fireplace in the living room and prepared for a peaceful night. However, the oppressive silence of that place continued to weigh on her. The cottage, with its strange atmosphere and peculiar decor, seemed to hide secrets she could not understand. As the night progressed, the sounds of the surrounding forest began to intensify. The wind howled in the trees, and the crackling fireplace echoed in the living room. Maria tried to concentrate on her book, but the restlessness wouldn't leave her. The isolation that initially attracted her now made her feel more isolated than ever. As night fell, the sounds of nature began to become clearer. Maria could hear the distant hooting of an owl and the sound of branches breaking under the weight of some nocturnal animal. However, these sounds were interrupted by others, more sinister. Shuffling footsteps echoed in the hallway, breaking the silence of the night. Maria immediately tensed, her book falling from her hands. The footsteps seemed to have come from upstairs, as if someone was walking in the cabin. She stood up silently and, with her heart racing, began to climb the stairs. Each step echoed in the silence of the house, filling the space with palpable tension. The cottage, which had previously seemed welcoming, now made her feel apprehensive. When Maria reached the top of the stairs, she looked down the dark hallway. The shadows were deep, and the only light came from the moon shining through the windows. Nothing seemed out of place, and Maria wondered if her mind was playing tricks on her. She walked slowly down the hallway, checking each room. However, he found nothing out of the ordinary. The doors were all closed, and the rooms were empty. Maria decided that her mind was deceiving her and that the constant silence was beginning to play with her senses. Back in the living room, she tried to regain her calm and continued reading her book. However, the sounds of the night continued to haunt her. The crickets sang in chorus, as if they were calling someone, and the wind howled as if it was trying to convey a message. Maria was determined to face her fears and spend the night in the cabin. She couldn't let isolation defeat her. However, what she didn't know was that the night would hold more disturbing surprises. As time progressed, the sounds of the night became more and more disturbing. Mysterious sounds were coming from upstairs, as if objects were being moved and dragged. Maria felt that she was not alone in the chalet, although she knew there was no one but her. Finally, exhausted and distraught, Maria decided to go to bed. However, sleep did not come easily. She lay in the darkness of the room, listening to the sounds of the night that continued to echo in the cabin. The crickets seemed to be singing in unison, as if they were calling someone, and the wind whispered incomprehensible words. The room seemed to be full of shadows, and Maria began to feel that she was not alone. She turned over in bed, looking at the shadows dancing on the walls. It was as if the cabin were alive and pulsing with an energy she couldn't understand. The night that unfolded before Maria was long and disturbing. She woke up several times with the feeling that she was not alone. The sounds of the night continued to fill the cabin, but they were not the sounds of life. They were like murmurs and whispers, as if the mountain range of silence was trying to tell her something she couldn't understand. The cottage, with its strange atmosphere and unsettling sounds, left her more confused than ever. She began to question her decision to spend the weekend in that isolated place. The isolation that initially attracted her now left her exhausted, and the constant silence disturbed her. What she didn't know was that the night was just beginning, and that the cabin still held terrifying secrets that would be revealed. The cabin in the mountain range of silence was shrouded in deep darkness when Maria woke up that morning. Her night had been filled with disturbing dreams and unintelligible whispers, and she felt more tired than ever. However, something had changed in the atmosphere of the cabin. As she went downstairs, Maria noticed that the fireplace in the living room was still lit, although she was sure she had turned it off the night before. It made her feel like she wasn't alone in the cabin, like someone had been there during the night. While exploring the living room, Maria noticed something was out of place. A book she had left on the shelf had been placed on the coffee table, and a chair was slightly out of place. The cabin appeared to have been disturbed while she slept, although there were no signs of a break-in. Maria felt increasingly uncomfortable in the chalet, as if she were being watched all the time. She decided it was time to investigate what was going on. There was one door she hadn't yet explored, the door in the basement. She walked down the dark stairs to the basement, where she found a solid wooden door locked with a rusty padlock. The key was hanging on a rusty nail in the dusty corner. The feeling that something was wrong grew as Maria looked at the locked door. Her curiosity prompted her to unlock the door. The padlock creaked as she inserted the key and turned the lock. Slowly, she pushed the door open and was met with a horrifying scene. Underground, she found an old, damp stone cell with chains hanging from the walls. The cell was lit only by a faint light that came through a small window at the top. The air was heavy and humid, as if time had stood still in this place. Maria was horrified by what she had found. She couldn't understand why a cell was hidden in the cabin's basement. Who would have been held prisoner in this terrible place? It's because, as she examined the cell, the chains began to swing, as if moved by an invisible force. A hissing whisper echoed through the cell, as if someone was trying to speak to her. Fear took over Maria, who quickly backed away, letting the cellar door close with a bang. Back in the living room, Maria was shaking and in shock. The cottage seemed to have a life of its own, as if it hid dark secrets that were unwilling to be revealed. She knew she needed to get out of that place as quickly as possible. Maria gathered her things, leaving behind any doubt that the chalet was possessed by an inexplicable energy. As she prepared to leave, the sounds of the night continued to echo outside, as if the mountain range of silence was trying to stop her from leaving. With her car loaded, Maria quickly drove away from that ominous cabin. She swore to never return to the mountain range of silence and leave behind the terrifying experience she had in that place. The cabin in the mountain range of silence remained a haunted memory in his mind. She never knew the story behind the cell in the basement or who or what inhabited it. However, the experience left permanent scars on her mind and made her question the unknown. The story of the cottage spread as a rumor among local residents who believed the place was cursed. The mountain range of silence was said to hold dark secrets that humanity was not destined to know, and the cabin was just one of them. Maria learned that sometimes the search for tranquility can lead to places that defy reason. She never sought isolated refuges again, fearing what might lurk in the shadows of solitude. The mountain range of silence became a reminder of a terrifying night that would haunt her forever.